What is up, guys? We are here for our fourth podcast, and I wanted to say this is a mini podcast, but it's not us fully lecturing, but more so us applying what we talked about last week. So, if you were here last week or listening or watching the video, you'll see that we talked about goal setting, really avoiding distractions, and after you avoid distractions, you set boundaries and then lead to goals. So here we are talking about goals. We've implemented some goal setting. Gavin specifically, he has them written out here. We just kind of, it's like we've been saying, we want to do the stuff, we want to learn the knowledge and apply the knowledge. So here we have Gavin, he's got his stuff, and we just kind of break down how you can apply goal setting and go from there. So
yeah, absolutely. Like Wesley said, this is a smaller episode. We may call this like an application series or something like that, something along those lines, kind of differentiate the information episodes from the application episodes. So one of the big guys that I was watching for the goal setting was Andrew Huberman. He's a lot on the science side, which is super beneficial when it comes to goal setting because it is very much in the head as much as it is what you're doing physically. So just a few big things that I picked up from watching that podcast, and if you want to look at us, the Huberman Labs goal setting toolkit episode, you want to see where I got my information from. But a lot of it talks about the science behind it, and I'm not going to get into it like he did, but just going to talk about how we applied what we learned from that, in the sense that lofty goals are very high stakes. Goals are very important to goal setting. It causes your brain to work harder. I know when me and Wesley growing up, if we wanted to set a goal, we'd always overshoot, because it's that idea of if you overshoot, you may not get to where you wanted to be, but you're still going to shoot and land higher than everybody else did. So one of the big things with that is going to be there's a lot of things that go into that, and a big thing is there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to goal setting. Some of the things that he talked about in that episode was the post-it fallacy, is what he called it, the accountability myth, which is one of the things with this podcast. Even me and Wesley did not tell a bunch of people. I think there's 5 people that know, including me and Wesley, about this podcast, maybe 6.
the other 2 are our girlfriends, so I mean, it's not
girlfriends and dads.
Yeah.
So it's not like we were out really saying this. We wanted a lot of natural growth with this. And like I said, it is an accountability thing for me and Wesley doing this. And then the other thing was the post-it fallacy, about if you put post-it notes everywhere about your goals, talking about what you want to do, that it's going to translate into you achieving that goal and you remembering and seeing that. But what he talks about in that podcast is that whenever you do that, your brain filters out those things and actually ignores them. So you subconsciously ignore those goals, which makes it almost harder to achieve your goals. There's a whole bunch of information that he talked about in there, and we're definitely not going to get into it like that. But I think that the next step would be, let's look at our goals and we can talk about how we can apply those. So we'll put a picture up, take a picture of the goals that I have set, and I'll talk about mine first, and then Wesley can hop into his. Mm-hmm. And so my goal is to get my general contractor's license. I'm 20 years old, so it's a lofty goal. It's what we talk about with the lofty goals. And with that being a lofty goal, not many 21-year-olds, not many 20-year-olds, not many 25-year-olds have their general contractor's license. Usually that's something you start to see later on in life, 30, 35, 40, is when people are you're seeing the bulk of people get that license. So I did my goals in different levels. So level 1 goal was to get my general contractor's license before the age of 21. It's a very surface level, very basic, not in-depth goal that is an all-encompassing statement about what I am doing. And then level 2, and again, if you go back and watch that, it talks about the different levels of setting goals and how to really refine that idea and refine the goal that you want to set into better things. And then level 2 goes into what do I need to do to achieve that goal. So obviously it's buy the books, buy the courses. Level 3 talks about buying the books, buying the courses, and then it talks about getting on a consistent study schedule because there's a lot of studying that's involved with the testing side specifically. And then level 4 goes into how very specific about I want to study for 25 minutes. I want to study for 2 hours a day in 25-minute segments with 5 minutes in between each 25-minute study segment. So again, I'll post the picture. You can read through it if you want to. And that right there is kind of how the different levels of what I did. And then I asked myself, I believe it was 5 important questions when setting this goal. First one was, what do I need to do physically to attain my goal? What is the physical actions? What do I have to, okay, physically I've got to go buy books. I've got to log online. Physically I've got to go to the state capitol and take the test. Physically I have to put in the work. The next question was, what do I need to do financially to attain my goal? Financially, I've got to pay for the hotels, pay for the books, pay for the classes, pay for the testing, pay for the gas. So financially, I've got to put myself in a financial position to attain my goal. And by asking that question, that prepares me for that. The next one was, what do I need to do mentally to attain my goal? Your mentality is a big thing with setting goals. And this is not specified to the general contractor license. This isn't specified to Wesley's goal. This is goals in general. No matter if your goal is to wake up earlier, mentally you have to be prepared. You may not have to prepare for that as much financially, and even physically, there's some goals you have to train for physically, but mentally is every single goal. That is the baseline of what you have to change. Next was, what do I need to do spiritually to attain my goal? Tying that back into our relationship with Christ, there's a lot of things that we need to prepare for spiritually. We believe that every single day we go into spiritual warfare. We believe that Satan is attacking us and trying to prevent us from achieving what God has planned for us, from try to throw roadblocks in the way of God's plans. And my last question that I asked was a super big one, especially coming from the Christ-like generosity standpoint, but how can achieving my goal give me the ability to be generous in ways that God could use? So how can achieving my goal give me the opportunity to bless someone? We live in a very self-centered world now, in today's time. So being outwardly focused and saying, okay, God's given me the ability to do this. Now how can I take that next step and give back to the people that God used to help me attain this goal? So it could be building buildings. It could be financially giving to someone. The next thing that I did was I did a financial log. So every time that I make a little bit of money, I dedicate a certain amount of money for that financial goal and say, so I got paid $400 a few weeks ago, and I said, okay, well, I'm going to take 300 of that and put it straight towards that. It goes in my separate account, and that right there is how I plan on answering the question of what do I need to do financially. And then one of the last things that I did is milestones. So, even it's a checklist. Raise money for a course, start the course, complete the program, book the test in Tallahassee, book the hotel, take the test, pass the test, get the license. There's obviously a lot more that goes into that, and that goes more into the different levels. And then just things to remember. Be proactive. Don't get behind on the work. Stay proactive with what you're doing. Don't say, well, I'm just going to take a day off. I'm going to take 2 days off, and then I'll just catch up in the next couple of days. It doesn't work. You never get caught up to what you truly were, because then those next couple of days you're cramming. And cramming is never good in this scenario for what I'm trying to do. Work like it depends on me and pray like it depends on God. That's a big one. My mom used to say that, says that to me all the time. If I'm struggling with something, Mom, I don't really know what to do, or Dad, I don't really know what to do. The big one that they always hit me with is work like it depends on me and pray like it depends on God. So that's a big one. If not doing anything towards accomplishing the goal, find something to work towards. So right now I'm waiting for my books. I'm waiting to financially attain the books. So I'm making sure that all my other, T's are crossed, I's are dotted. So when I get past the test, it's as simple. I'm not like, oh, well, I've got to do all this other stuff afterwards. And the last one is do not procrastinate when it comes to studying, reading, and preparing. So that kind of goes back into be proactive and don't get behind on the work, but just things to remember. So that's kind of my goal setting. And like I said, this isn't going to be, like we said, this isn't going to be a very long episode, but it's more going to be just this is how we apply what we learn and apply it to our lives to help embrace the chase of what we're going after. So Wesley, if you kind of want to take over now and talk about your goals and what you got going on.
Yeah, I never wrote out my goals as detailed as Gavin did. I actually never wrote them out, period. And the reason I haven't yet, number one, I've been busy. But number two, if I really did want to write these out, I would have in time for this podcast. But right now, for me, I want to prove myself right first towards working towards my goal of a half ultra. And I haven't
What
put
is
it.
it? What is a half ultra?
A half ultra marathon is 50 miles. So a full ultra is obviously 100. That's the goal after the half ultra. I just ran a full marathon in October, as stated. So right now, I did my first run last night. I was hoping to get 3 by the time we did this, but life got crazy. But I started yesterday on Monday. Just gonna keep it going consistently every week. What's different from me training for this half ultra for my marathon is the program I did was every other day, which I don't mind. It gives you plenty of rest in between the hard runs, the easy runs, the long runs, but that just killed my consistency. If you miss one day, it's like, oh, today's an off day. But if you miss the day that you have, even for an easy run, that's 2 full days you miss. So for me, I'd rather wire it in my head so I run all on the weekdays, take the weekends off, and recover as needed. So right now I started yesterday, and my goal is just to get back to where I need to, get my cardio back where I need it, get my legs adjusted, and run every day consistently. For the next 2 weeks, just get back into it, kind of get my heart back, somewhat back where I need it to, and then from there, I will write more detailed goals. Just for me, if I wrote out those goals now, it might be too daunting for me. So right now, I want to prove myself first that I can do that, and then once I get in the groove, it's like, okay, I did the first part. The first part's the hardest part usually for anybody. So it's commit, execute, and then start to get a detailed plan to refine the execution. So that's kind of how I'm attacking it, and I'll update y'all how that goes within the next couple weeks. But I have not put a date on the half ultra yet. It's kind of just to get back first. I don't want it to have to rush myself in this process, because running, if you look at any of these big guys that run, I mean, there's Cameron Haynes, there's Nick Bare, there's just too many guys out there that you can see. They'll tell you running is like one of the coolest sports, and it is one of the most applicable sports for anybody, because not only is it the most famous sport in the world, out of any sport in the world, there's the most runners, but it really does teach you how to build something. So it's really like stacking bricks, and I enjoy it because I grew up running, but from training for my marathon, that was so much more of an experience for me, because everything adds up with itself. So when I would do my easy run, I would have to control my heart rate, keep my heart rate in an aerobic level. So that doesn't make sense. I won't go into description for that, but you have to do everything accordingly. Your rest days are just as important as your hard runs. Everything is kind of consistent with each other. If one thing's off, the next day is off, and that next day influences your next rest day, which influences the next day. Everything ties in together. Even something as simple as eating, your diet, your hydration, getting enough electrolytes, all this stuff. It was honestly really cool for me to train for that marathon, because it taught me all these things, and it is a lot of discipline, but I think it's just applicable for a business and anything you do in life, whether it's starting a family or it's leading a small group at church. Everything ties in with each other. You're stacking bricks to build a foundation in a building, and if one thing's off, the whole building's off. So that's kind of how I'm going to go about it the next couple weeks. I'm going to start with something first, just get back into it, build the habit for the next 2 weeks, and then kind of once I've proved myself that I can execute that, it's refining the plan and getting more detailed with it, pushing even harder, and just going from there. So I'll get a more detailed written plan for that, just so y'all can kind of see. But eventually, we do want to get to the point to where we've proven these goals, but then we can hopefully start to show y'all more insight on our business, how we're growing something. Obviously, not going into too much detail, but obviously, that's what most people want to see more on the business side. Really, not even just for this one simple goal. I don't think we want to have to sit just on this one goal necessarily. So we want to really show y'all how everything is for us. We don't want to have to highlight the good things. We want to show what it looks like. Us as in a young entrepreneur journey right now, it's not as consistent as it could be if we were 30, but it's building those bricks and letting each brick and every small win compound into bigger wins. So it's kind of building that habit now. It's right now is going to be the slowest process for us, but it's kind of about just stacking small wins and going about it. So
Well, I think it's a cool thing too to look at with the goal planning and the goal setting. So my big thing was writing it down was my big action. That was my action step. That was, okay, if I'm gonna do this, let me write it down. And Wesley's action step was, again, there are two different styles of goals. It's two different types. But Wesley's action step was, okay, I'm gonna get out there and start running. And I think that's an important thing to look at because it shows that goals aren't a cookie cutter thing. The way that I set goals isn't the way that Wesley sets goals. We're not gonna bring out a cookie cutter and place the goal on the table and just stamp it out and say, there it is. It shows you have to custom tailor your goals to you, to what works for how your mind works. So Wesley's a very much go-getter and figure it out along the way. That's the way Wesley has really been. Me and Wesley are both that way to a certain degree, but that's both of our style is let's start on that process and then we'll plan as we go along the way. Where on the baseline, I'm more of I'm gonna write out my goal and I'm gonna kind of plan out a little bit ahead of time. And again, this is a little, like I said, it's a little bit of a different goal than what Wesley's achieving. So there is a little bit more planning that needs to go into it, just because you're talking about hotel stays, you're talking about studying, you're talking about courses. I mean, there's a little bit more structure that goes along with that.
It's two completely different. It's like comparing an apple and an orange, basically.
But again, it's one of those things to show that just because me and Wesley do our goals this way doesn't mean that that's how you have to do it. Just because Wesley's running goal is something that he's gonna start running and then go figure out the written down goal setting portion doesn't mean that because you wrote it down is wrong. But also the way Wesley's doing is wrong. If you're the one that's, well, I'm just gonna go and buy the books for whatever test I'm taking or whatever class I'm taking, and yours is, well, I'm gonna pass all the tests and then I'll figure out what to do. That doesn't make it wrong and it doesn't make it right. It's just how you're doing what you plan on doing. It's your methodology behind it. And like Wesley said, this is a young podcast. We're young guys, young entrepreneurs with a Christ-like focus. We want to make sure that we're doing things that honor Christ. And it's a lot like Wesley was saying earlier. There's a lot of steps along the way, and we don't want this to be, like Wesley, we don't want this to be a highlight reel. We don't want this to be, man, listen, my business just hit $1 million, or my business just hit this. We want it to be, hey, my business just hit $1 million, but 6 months ago we were talking about how we just made a mistake that potentially may have just sunk the ship. And just be 100% honest, because that's part of the reason why me and Wesley started this is we felt as if everybody that was making business podcasts was like, of course, well, here's what not to do. And those are all great things, but you never see anybody follow through with that of here's what not to do and here's how to get out of it if you do fall into the situation. So you're not going to see me and Wesley make every right decision. You're going to see me and Wesley make a lot of wrong decisions, but you're going to see us work through that and achieve the goals that we have set despite hard times, despite overcoming difficult situations. And Wesley, I'm sure you got some things you want to say about that.
Yeah, I think what kind of sums it all up is this Michelangelo. I think it was Michelangelo. There's a quote that he said was, "If everybody saw how much work I put into my paintings, they wouldn't think it's as impressive as it was."
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, just shows that nothing. Obviously, there's the cliche saying Rome wasn't built overnight, but I mean it's just true, and I think it's so easy right now with our culture, with whether it's drop shipping or all these quick, just
Get rich
freelancing or copywriting. Like, those aren't bad things. Those are definitely good skills to learn, but they definitely make it seem like, oh, do these 10 things and you could have this going in a month, earning $30,000 a month. Most of the time, 99.9% of the time, that's not how it works.
Yeah, and I think really it is a discouraging thing for young entrepreneurs, because these guys go on there, I'll make a YouTube video, 15-minute YouTube video talking about, well, this is how I built my $300,000 Amazon store in 6 months or 3 months or whatever, and then you do it, because I've fallen into that trap of, well, when I was in bed for a while with my knee when I got ACL surgery. So I was like, well, I'm just sitting around here all day. I might as well just see what the drop shipping stuff, let me just give it a shot. And then nothing happened for like a month. I tried it for like a month, and these guys were like, oh, he was starting to become millionaires in a month. So you almost get discouraged because of it. And it's like, well, maybe I'm not cut out for business. And of course, that wasn't the thought that I had, because I've done my own business before. I've seen my dad start his own business, and we have tons of mentors around us that have started their own business. So I'm like, okay, well, I know that's not what it is, but to somebody who is from the 9-to-5 background, it can be a little bit discouraging. Okay, maybe this business thing isn't just isn't for me.
Well, there's always hidden stuff. I mean, especially with social media, there's things that we don't see. I saw a video today. I was kind of funny about it. The caption was a model exposing social media, and it showed him with like a glass of wine or something in his hand, and he was sitting in what appeared to be an airplane, and he just gets up, sets the drink down on the table, and he walks out. And once he walks past like 10 to 15 feet, it shows just a cutout of like an airplane. It's like cardboard or something, and then he opens a warehouse door, walks outside, and it just shows. It's kind of funny, but you're like, dang, you're like that. You see people like that all the time posting in the private jets, stuff like this, when most of the time it is just a lie. You can't take anything for face value anymore. You really can't determine the truth, and that's what we appreciate about the Bible. That's what we believe. The Bible has always been true. It's always been consistent, and it's something, for me, consistency is based off the truth. You're never going to get anywhere. If you look at any successful person, they never got to where they were based off inconsistency. They had a habit or system that they have revised and planned and executed, and has found that successful because they stuck with one thing, one habit, one routine, whatever it was, consistently, and that consistency just compounded. You know what I mean? So it's nothing's for face value, but it's just stick with something and just run with it.
Yeah, and I think that's it's one of the things too, that the older I get, we're only 20 years old, so it sounds funny saying the older I get, but I would say that as 20-year-olds, we've worked more jobs, learning more things with more skills than the average 20-year-old. I mean, right when we were in high school, and I was given a pressure washer, and called Wesley up, hey man, I just got a pressure washer, you want to go do some pressure washing? Wesley said, yeah, I've got the perfect lady. So we went and did that lady's house, and that lady said, well, I can't pay y'all, but we've got this old broken pressure washer that isn't running, so if you want it, I mean, just come knock it out, you can have it. So it was that idea of, and then we fixed it up, cleaned some carburetors, put some fresh gas in it, fired it up, and we did that all throughout high school. And when we graduated high school, and we went on to the next thing, and then whenever that wasn't what it seemed, we went on to the next thing. And then whenever that wasn't what it seemed, we learned more and more and more and more that as soon as we left the pressure washing, we were building everybody else's dream. I mean, it's really the company that I worked for, I saw me put in hundreds of hours in the projects. We would see the money reports, and we would see how much money we were making this company, And then they would, whenever we were driving a far ways, we were driving probably 30, 40 miles each way for work, and they would say, well, all we can afford to give you is a $40 gas per diem. And then a week later, and then a week later, not even, they buy five $80,000 trucks. So it's like, man, I don't want anything to do with this, because they did care about us, but they didn't care. Everybody else's priorities were put above our basic necessities. I mean, I know I was spending a lot of money in gas, but it's the idea that why would you spend 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week building somebody else's dream instead of building your own? And I get that's hard for some people, because either they have to have the job, they make really good money, but it's that idea of put in the work afterwards, so one day you can leave that job, you can do that, whatever that is, whatever that passion or that purpose is, and really devote your life to it to allow you to build your dream instead of somebody else's.
Yeah, and like we said before, I mean, we enjoy construction. We both would cherish that and go back to it if we really wanted, but it really depends on what your plans are, what your goals are. With construction, I mean, if you look at somebody that wants to eventually be a general contractor or even a superintendent, you know, their only route to get to it, to be a good superintendent is just to be the shovel guy. You're gonna be the guy on the ground, that go get this guy, you know, just the errand guy if you really need it. But you've got to start somewhere, and that's what, if you look at, I mean, we've come across countless general contractors that have said, you know, at one point they were the guys pushing the wheelbarrows, you know what I mean, and they've been through the crappy side, and granted they're all 40, 50, 60 years old now, but they had to start somewhere, and most of the time going to college really isn't going to cut it. You're only getting so much knowledge, and that knowledge you really don't retain if you don't apply it.
Absolutely.
So with something like that, sometimes you just gotta put your nose down and just do the work, get as much as you can from it. If you want to be a superintendent, you know, even in the same company that we left for construction, somebody's goal is to maybe be there. They might only be making $30,000 a year, but they're like, hey, one day I do want to become a superintendent. So it's like, hey, let me learn this, prove that I've learned what I can, and then slowly get promotions, and then slowly talk to the right people and show that you're held responsible with that job, and just slowly work yourself up the ladder.
And I think, touching back on the college note about what is college and what is it used for, I know in today's day and age, me and Wesley are both pushed to go to college by a lot of people, by people in the high school that we went to. My parents, both of them, very, very much so push college. And my dad runs a super successful water treatment company here in Jacksonville, and he didn't go to college. So it really does come down to what Wesley said. If you want it, put your nose down and work. And I know whenever I was graduating high school, it was a big argument, because I was like, I don't want to go to college. My mom works for a college. She was like, you need to go to college. And I said, well, Mom, if this specific person, somebody who I have a lot of respect for, and somebody who's poured a lot into me and Wesley, I said, if this person, he also works at college. I said, if this person says I don't need to go to college, do I have to go to college? She goes, if that person says you don't have to go to college, you don't have to go. And I said, okay. So I went and asked the guy, and I said, you know the guy's name, and I said, hey man, I said, do I need college? He goes, do you need college? No. And I said, okay, so I don't have to go. And he asked me this question. He said, it depends. Do you want to climb the ladder, or do you want to own the ladder? He said, if you want to climb the ladder, go to college. If you want to own the ladder, take what's applicable. So me and Wesley are both in the position of, okay, we want to own the ladder. And we took some college classes. You know, we're not saying that college isn't beneficial, but for somebody that wants to own the ladder like us, it was, let me take what is specified. So we took marketing principles, and then I have a few business classes that I took at another college. But as soon as I took those classes, I was like, okay, I'm not passionate about anything else, so I'm not going to put my heart into it. And if I don't put my heart into it, then it's not going to be worth my while.
Why do it? Yeah. Well, we just kind of want to outlay that for y'all. Just take y'all along the journey as we have our goals and execute them. So, we'll keep y'all updated.
Yeah.
We want to have fun the next couple of weeks with our podcast too. It's not just us rambling with certain stuff. You can still see what we're doing, but we don't want it to be just us talking about this stuff. We want to have some fun, let y'all get to know us a little,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully just keep us going one podcast at a time and just get the most out of it. We want to start sharing some clips, stuff like that of us, what we do for fun, what our businesses are, us hitting workouts, stuff like that. So
yeah, and as you can see, we did get a new setup, a little bit of an upgraded setup from the last one that we used for the last 3 episodes.
Upgrades, baby.
Oh yeah, we're slowly getting there.
Listen, we're climbing the ladder of podcast world.
Oh,
One day
yes,
we're
we
gonna
are.
own it.
We're gonna own our studio and all that, but
Yeah.
I think it does go back into, if you want it, you're gonna find ways to make it better and better and better.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
that's all we got. So we'll see y'all guys next week.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.